Welcome to a rather grey and dreary December day in the Surrey Hills, but I brought along something to brighten up the day a little bit. It's the new specialised Camber Evo 2015 model, and happens to be my new long-termer. I've had it a couple of months now, done about 100 miles or so on it, and already loving it. Absolutely brilliant, fun little bike. Thought it'd be a good opportunity to have a little walk around, point out a few bits of interest on it, and basically get to know it a little bit better. The key word with this bike is Evo, and while the Camber's quite a short travel bike, the Evo tag basically indicates that it's a lot more capable and a lot more fun. The standard Camber is 110 millimeters of travel front and rear. Now the Evo gets 120, so you get a 10mm extra travel. Part of that's down to the fork, which is a 120mm travel RockShox Reba, and part of that is down to the Evo link here, the Evo yoke I suppose you could call it, and the slightly longer stroke shock. I think it's 3mm longer stroke. Now the Evo link gives you a slightly different geometry to the standard bike. You get a lower bottom bracket, it's about 5mm lower, and you get a slacker head angle and obviously a slacker seat angle to go with it. The head angle is about 1.2 degrees roughly slacker. Now the fork, although it looks like well, it is a standard Reba, but it's the new one which has got the black anodized stanchions, which look pretty cool. They've got the sag markings on them as well, which is useful for setting it up. And it's also got, you can't see it in there, but in the air spring leg you can actually add effectively what is equivalent to the bottomless tokens that you find on the pike. 32mm diameter, and the little black tokens instead of red ones. They do exactly the same thing. I'm running 2 in there at the moment. The fork comes with 0 factory fit, but if you add a couple of them in there, you can lower the pressure slightly, give yourself a little bit more sensitivity, but you still get a good ramp up towards the end of the stroke. It's a really useful feature for, you know, what is not a very expensive fork, but you're getting some cool little additions to help get yourself set up. But another cool little feature on these Reba forks, and same on most of the RockShox range, is that the rebound knob actually pulls out the bottom of the right leg, damping leg, and at the end of that you've got a little 2.5mm Allen key, and you can adjust your maxle tension of your maxle skewer with that as well. So when you open up the maxle, that goes inside, the little Allen key in there, and you can hear the clicks. You can tighten it or loosen it depending on the tension you want to achieve. This thing here is called a dangler, so it just adds a little bit of tension to the chain just to help it from kind of dropping off. I was pretty skeptical about this, having used similar things in the past, but so far seems to be doing the job. It's actually quite quiet when you're pedaling, doesn't seem to add a lot of resistance, and despite having a 2x drivetrain, I haven't dropped the chain yet. So, and the Type 2 clutch mech is pretty light at the back there. It's almost like it really doesn't have a clutch, so that's not really doing too much. So despite the kind of skepticism of that, I'm going to keep it on for now. You might notice that I changed the tyres on this. So being winter, I've put the Specialized Storms on there, which are a great winter tyre. In the box with the Camber you get these tubeless valve kits, so the rim strips are already in there, so all you need to do if you want to run tubeless is obviously get a tubeless ready tyre, which this one is. You take the inner tubes out, and then you put the valve in there, and a caterpillar, that's not standard, and then fill it with some sealant, and then you're away. So front one I've set up tubeless. Didn't have much success with the rear, just wouldn't seal, so I left the tube in there for now, but I'll probably have another crack at that at some point. But pretty cool kit. Make sure you get it from the shop, and no excuses really, just give the tubeless a go, because it's definitely worth it. There's only a couple of things really that I didn't like as soon as I built the bike up out of the box. First things were the size specific grips. Now these are the standard SIP grips with the half waffle, and they're one of my favourite grips. Really nice kind of soft rubber, nice and thin, feel really good even without gloves. But this being a large frame size, this one came with the larger diameter grips, and it's just too big for my hands. So it's a nice idea that they're obviously trying to make the bike size specific in the contact points, and but I just prefer the thinner grips, so I've swapped those over. Came with a 75mm stem, which is just far too long for this bike. Just takes away some of the sharpness from the steering, kind of makes it a little bit floppy. So put a 30 on there, which is one of the Mondraker FG stems, the on-off stems, and that suits this bike perfectly. Gives a really razor sharp steering, loads of control, but there's enough length in the bike that it doesn't feel like your knees are in your lap and you're sort of bang your knees on the bars. So those are kind of the only two things really that needed changing out of the box for me. I mean, it might work for some people, but I definitely think this bike came alive with a shorter stem. The other thing I've added is the specialised command post, dropper post. Now I tried running the internal routed version of this one, which is I think the command post IR. There is actually, I'll show you around here, a port for an internally routed seat post. I thought, okay, well, it shouldn't be too hard. So routed it in there, and it's actually designed to come out, as you can see down there, come out just above the forward shock mount. But obviously you can continue it all the way down the top tube and then up the seat tube. So that's what I did. But the seat post has to, when you've got it inserted, it goes too far down. You can't actually get the cable around and connected to the bottom of the seat post. So that didn't work. On most of the other Specialized that have got proper stealth routing, they generally bring it down the down tube, and they've got a little port down here, goes into the down tube there, up around the top of the BB, and then up the seat tube. But this alloy camber doesn't have that routing, which is a bit frustrating. So I've had to kind of abandon it for now. I don't really want to drill the frame, as it's not mine. And obviously if you had one of these, it's going to void your warranty if you do that. Really, I think it's something that Specialized need to add for next year. I think that's totally unique to Specialized. It's a really cool feature for getting your bike set up right, getting the rear suspension set up, is the auto sag. The Camber Evo's got it as well. It's down here on the shock. It's this red valve here. You want to overinflate the shock to about 300 psi. I've just done this already. And you do that with the black valve on the other side. That's the standard air valve there. And then once you've done that, you sit on your bike in all your riding kit, and then you just depress this little red valve here, the auto sag valve, and air will come out. When the air stops coming out, you will have reached your sag point. So press the valve, air stop coming out, release the valve, and that is the correct sag. From there you can play with the rebound dial. It's the red one up the top here. I've got it pretty much wide open at the moment because I'm only light. One click, I think. Yeah. So I'm not the rebound's not having to control a lot of spring force, and you've got a 3 position compression there as well, which I tend to leave fully open as well, just to it actually pedals pretty well, this bike, so I haven't really felt the need to use the platform in there. So why do I think this is such a fun bike? Well, fundamentally there are 2 things that Specialized have got really right on this bike. First is the geometry. You've got a super low BB, so it's well below the axles, lots and lots of stability, gives you loads of confidence. You can kind of slam into ruts, you can rail corners, it really does corner fantastically. The other thing you've got is a reasonably slack head angle, it's not super slack, it's about 68 degrees, but with the short stem you've got really good steering, really easy to control, really good when it's pretty steep. You've got a fairly good balance with the BB between the axles as well, because you've got quite a long chainstay and a reasonably long front centre. It's not massive, this bike, but it's a pretty good size for a kind of my height, 5'10". So you're well placed between the axles. You never feel like you're too far off the back or too far over the front. It's not hard to weight the front on corners, but you've also got loads of traction for climbing. The other thing that Specialized really got right, and this is something they're kind of renowned for really, is the suspension. The suspension is super supple, it's got loads and loads of grip, and it just gives you the confidence and the traction to be able to ride harder and faster than you probably would on any other kind of short travel 2.9er. Not very progressive, this bike, so you can actually bottom it out pretty easily, but it's very supple. So you've got the whole back end basically working on sealed cartridge bearings, so there's no bushing rotation which is going to take away the compliance. So you've got this co-pivot here, so you've got the little swing link, you've got the yoke, and the seat stays just driving the shock, so it's just pitter patter. There's no bushing rotation at all there. They completely eliminated that, and combined with what is a really good tune on this Float CTD, you just got loads and loads of grip. You can just feel it tracking the ground. The other factor is you've got a good stiff rear end as well. You look at all these little pivots down here, the stance on them is all really wide, really chunky, and just keeps the back end nice and stiff. Pedal's pretty good. It does definitely squat under load, so that it just sort of sinks into the travel a little bit and sort of stays there when you're out of the saddle and kind of really, putting the power down. But it feels pretty good actually. It doesn't bob too much. As I say, it climbs really well because it's got quite long chainstays. The other thing Special's managed to do with this bike for 2015 is it's dropped the price by £200, which is quite impressive really. It's now £2,000 total. Last year's bike was 2,200, and then there was the Stump Jumper Evo above that, which was 2.5, and it came with a better fork, it came with a Revelation, and it came with a dropper post. And the two were a little bit too close really. You kind of thought, well, why would I get a Camber Evo when the Stump Jumper Evo is only a few £100 more? But now the price difference is 500 quid, and it just makes more sense. I think I've got a Stump Jumper Evo. I'm amazed how good this bike is compared to that, and how much you can get away with on it. Like, sure, you reach the end of the rear travel, you bottom it out, and you start really sort of taking on big stuff. But the geometry is there to allow you to go really fast and in lots of confidence and have a blast doing it at the same time. It's quite a thing. It's a really impressive bike for £2,000. And if you can't have fun on this bike, then you probably won't be able to have fun on anything really. They've really nailed it in that respect. few things I'm going to keep an eye on over the next few months. So there's the BB30, press fit BB30, so we'll see how long that lasts, whether the bearings need replacing. So far so good, but we'll see about that. The front hub has already started to come, well, it's loose. There's a little bit of play in the combs on the front hub, so I'll be keeping an eye on the bearings at the front. I'm going to toy with the idea of going on the drivetrain, maybe a 1x10, to take the inner ring off and the front mech and stuff, save a bit of weight, keep it simple. So I might be doing that at some point. But really, I mean, it's going to stay pretty much as you see there, I think. I'm going to be updating my long-termer in the magazine every month, so check it out there, and hopefully I'll also bring you another little video, tell you how it's going in a couple of months' time.